declined the call, texted me, said, I'm on the tarmac, can't talk. I'm like, you never sent the wire. Where's the wire? He's like, what wire? And I'm like, this $600,000 we talked about yesterday at lunch, dude. What do you mean, what wire? And he's like, I don't know what you mean. There is no money. When I learned how to deploy all the energy that I was using for these addictions, pour it into something productive, it didn't take long. So if I can help somebody else realize there's all these other possibilities over here, let's just redirect your energy. I've heard a quote recently that the pain, when you feel that discomfort, a lot of people see that as a signal to turn back, and it's not. It's a signal that you're actually breaking out of a conditioned response. So when you feel that discomfort, the right thing to do is to lean in.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Business Podcast. I'm your host, Javi Chavez. I am so excited for this conversation today. Today we have somebody who is a 9-figure entrepreneur. He's had 3 exits, and he's become a friend, someone who I've enjoyed hanging out with. So I think I'm really excited for the conversation. You're going to get a lot of value out of it. Justin Lund, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're happy you're here. So first question, I think a lot of people as entrepreneurs, like we think about, well, how can I make money today? But more importantly, like, how can I build a business that is sellable and something that somebody's going to actually want to pay money for?
Yeah. I think the main thing in that is it can't rely on you as the founder. If everything hinges on you being there all day long, then you're going to have problems when you try to get out of that situation. So that comes back to creating systems, documentation, standard operating procedures, things that can move without you physically being present as the hub. That's what I prioritize.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so most business owners are visionary types.
Yeah.
That hate systems, processes, and documents, and literally everything you just mentioned. So how does somebody begin that process?
It's a good question. Another good question. Usually it creates, you need to have the right mindset going into it. And so some of those thoughts, I know this from my experience. For instance, I always hated the numbers. I did things in that. I mean, a little bit of my background. I got taken for a ride for tens of millions of dollars taken from me because I didn't like numbers. So just the price can be very extreme. So a head in the sand sort of strategy is not recommended. A lot of people think, especially entrepreneurs, we try to solve problems. We look at everything like, okay, how can I fix that? How can I solve it? Which makes it special. But sometimes we look at through that same lens when we're trying to hire an accountant or when we look at numbers. So we want to solve it, make it as good as we can. And I'd say just start. You don't need a master's degree in accounting to start looking at your numbers, So you can start a little bit. You can spend, like, one of my suggestions to my clients is book a call with your CPA once a quarter and start there. I'm like, well, I don't even know what to talk about. What will I say? Like, just book the call, man. It's a couple $100 she'll pay for the time. Book the call, and at least it's on the books, and you can have a conversation and see where it goes from there.
I love it. And so you already mentioned like how you got, stolen from, and so kind of tell people like a little bit of like your background, your story, how you ended up here. And
yeah, sure. So I started a business almost 20 years ago, and that was after a rough patch in my life where I had fallen. I was in sales, high ticket coaching sales, way back before they were cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah, before they were a high ticket closer.
Yeah. And that environment was a little bit toxic. There were some drugs there. And so I had a bout of that, and I went to rehab and learned a lot about myself. And I love that because I love psychology and learning more. And that's why I like sales too. I use psychology to I tried to sound like Tony Robbins on my sales pitch. That was my goal. So learning more about myself in rehab was a good thing for me. I spent 6 weeks there, came out, and kind of had a chip on my shoulder to prove that I had some value to the world, So I really went to work on trying to build something. Had some success. It took me 1.5 years of just sleeping on my mom's floor with 2 kids.
Wow.
Really grinding it out. And my wife was not loving that at all. But after a couple of years, it started to get some momentum, and 6 figures turned into 7. 7 was starting to take off. And I was like, whoa, I got scared. I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm like, I'm going to have tax problems. I don't know what to do. And
so when you were making on this ride, like, what were you still in high ticket sales or?
No.
Okay.
No, I got into marketing and affiliate network.
Got it.
This is 2005, 6. So AdWords is fairly new. Like
Mm.
Facebook, brand new. Instagram wasn't around yet.
Mhm.
So we were doing the business that time was just brokering. I was taking people that had offers, things to sell, and finding publishers or traffic sources that could sell them and connecting those two and keeping a little margin in between. A lot of it just how it is. Yeah, small. Oh, we were doing a lot of volume. So in time, we got to a lot of volume during that. So as that revenue started to grow, I'm not good with numbers started to really freak me out. And that's when I brought somebody else in to help me with the numbers. And I just, in time, turned everything over to them and just totally had a blind eye to it. And he was good to say, "You're so great taking care of these accounts. Like, go out, travel the world, take care, like land more deals. You're so awesome." Stroking my ego. And then he was just siphoning money off for years.
Wow.
Yeah, lots.
Wow. So I guess obviously besides knowing your numbers, were there any red flags that looking back on, you're like, dang, I should have noticed that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like what?
A lot of it was like he did a lot of grooming of me to an extent. You know, there was a lot of psychological stuff that he would say things like, "Hey, if we're in, we're just in. We're going to go all the way in." And he'd have little sayings that this man was in my house regularly with my kid. It wasn't just like some,
God messed with my head for sure.
Yeah. So that was silly. I even had friends that worked with me and for me at the time. They're like, "Are you sure about this?" But I was just committed. I mean, he'd use examples like, "We're married. We're going to be married forever. So if you ever have a problem, come to me. Don't talk to anybody else." And so that just kept in control. One of the biggest red flags that this just popped into my mind, that should have thrown off the alarm bells, is with his own children. He once showed me a map of the town that he lived in, and he took a compass and he stuck it in and drew a circle. And he told his kid, he's like, "If you live inside of this circle, I'll help you. If you live outside of this circle, you're on your own."
Yeah.
Just because he could keep control.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Wow. So those are red flags.
Yeah.
And then okay. So you do that and tell me kind of what's the next step, or what do you end up moving into, or actually tell me the climax. That's probably a better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. How did you find out and what happens then?
Yeah. So I recall a time things started getting weird. And so now we're looking at like 2009, 10-ish. I don't remember the exact time, but when the economy started to hit the wall, right? Banks are failing, bailouts were happening on Wall Street. And this is when things started to get really weird because some of the money that we had in banks was getting like locked up by FDIC control, right? So what I didn't know was happening at the time is that he was leveraging our cash flow from these enterprises to borrow tens of millions of dollars.
Oh my gosh.
So
They wanted the outcome due, basically? Or sorry.
Yeah, he wanted me out of there because he didn't want me to answer questions for FDIC investigators because there's tens of millions in loans that the cash flow is kind of collateralizing that I had no idea existed.
Oh my gosh.
So the bank president was involved with some of this stuff, and like it was quite the scandal. And he was telling me like, "You should leave. You should go out of town." Just like there's lawsuits taking place. There's people getting deposed and subpoenaed and things. And so he kind of whipped me into a state of fear, and I started to panic. And I have 3 kids now, and I'm like, "Oh man, what's going on?" And I had a subpoena served on me, and I called him first because that's what I always did, right? He's my go-to, and he was an attorney and a CPA and all kinds of credential things. And he's like, "No, they didn't serve you. You didn't accept the paperwork from them, so it didn't count. So just leave it there. Take a picture of it. I'll come over, take some pictures of it. Like, you're good, but you should just go on a vacation. Just take off." So I did. I listened to him. And unbeknownst to me, over the next few weeks, there was a warrant issued for my arrest.
Wow.
Because I didn't show up to give testimony, right?
Wow.
And so that's when talk about like should have been a red flag. But again, I'm still going to him. But I started thinking like, how do I have a subpoena? And I had this legal stuff from before with drugs. And so that was 4 or 5 years in my rear view mirror now. I'm like, I'm not going there again. That was scary enough to face that potential breaking my family apart. So I started to call different attorneys. And they're like, "That seems weird." So I didn't have any data because he had all of our records and files and everything.
Mhm.
So he went away on a vacation and I went into the office and I grabbed a couple of thumb drives. I took it to an accountant and an attorney. And they're like, okay, well, what do you think happened? And with some of the data and my narrative, they're like, oh, dude, you're screwed.
Oh man.
Like, what do you mean screwed? They're like, well, you have two choices. One is you just hope nobody ever looks. Just slip off into the sunset and don't make any waves. Like, well, what happens if somebody, what do you mean if somebody looks? You know,
Like, what's weird? Yeah.
like, well, I haven't redone all the taxes or anything, but it looks like you are in debt millions to the IRS. Like, for instance, one year you said you did about $37 million. Your tax return shows 300,000. I was like, wait, whoa, what? Like,
Oh my gosh.
so like a big disparity, right? Huge. And I'm like, well, what happens? Well, what's the other option? Like
Mhm.
the other option is you start you put the puzzle pieces together and refile your taxes with millions owed. And they're like, yeah, you spend the rest of your life trying to pay it off. And hopefully that one doesn't take you to prison. The
Mhm.
first door, if somebody looks, you're probably going to prison.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am again after all this. Whoa.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I got 4 kids now. The 4th was just born not long before that. And I'm like, I can't risk going to prison. So tell me about door number 2. So you guys have fun. They're like, okay, you got to file all these years of taxes over again. We're going to make our best guesses. We're going to use the data that we have. And when I got done with that, it was about $5 million in taxes.
Wow. Big hole.
Plus the penalties. They're now, the first year was 5 years behind now. So there's penalties and interest racking up on top of that. And it's big. And taxes always seem complicated unless you owe them money. And then it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Oh, funny. And so you go to lawyers, you figure that stuff out. So what happens to your partner? Does he ride off in the sunset and just kind of run away, or what
for the
happens?
most part, like I remember having, as I was kind of piecing this together and hadn't really got in too deep with the data that I had taken out of the office, what limited info that I could get, I went to lunch with him and I'm like, hey, so, and I was just testing to see, like, is he really screwing me that bad? Or, you know, so I told him I'm rebuilding this. I laid out this plan for, I'm going to have this office space. I'm hiring these 5 guys back. We're going to rebuild this here and that there. And he sat there like right across the table. He's like, oh, that's awesome. That sounds great. And that's awesome. Everything's cool. I'm like, okay, so I just need like 600 grand back of the money for now. Cause my wife feels a little bit anxious that our bank accounts are pretty much down to 0. And I want to give her peace of mind that I'm going to go build. And I got a little bit of, he's like, cool, right on. And then I left. I realized he never said yes. He just kept saying like, cool and right on. And you're awesome. And that sounds great. And he was leaving the next day on another vacation. And then I called him that morning and he declined the call, texted me, said, I'm on the tarmac. Can't talk. I'm like, you never sent the wire. Where's the wire? The 600 grand. He's like, what wire? And I was just, I still feel it coming up. It's like a turn in my stomach. And I'm like, this $600,000 we talked about yesterday at lunch, dude. What do you mean? What wire?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know what you mean. There is no money. And I said, what? He's like, I don't know what money you're speaking about. It's all in text. Like, there is no money. I was like, oh man, sorry, gotta go, taking off. And then, wow,
Crazy. And that was it.
that was it. Wow. When he landed, I did talk to him and he said the same thing. And then from there, I think that was the last time I spoke to him until we were in a deposition room. And that was the next time I saw him, which is about 1.5 years later. So I went from that and hired some lawyers, hired the wrong lawyers at first, which took me 6 months of money and all that, just going down the wrong road. But hired lawyers, figured that whole process out, and then spent months, which turned into 4.5 years, getting into like trying to do discovery. And his strategy was to just stretch it out, make it as expensive as possible. So he would sue and serve papers on anybody that he could find that had any relationship to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It was a good ride.
Yeah. And so now you're in this, $5 million hole?
Mm-hmm. And climbing.
Yeah. Legal fees and all this other stuff. So walk me through kind of your mindset at that time. Like, what, cause I like to think I know what I would do, but like, what was your plan? Like, what were you thinking?
I didn't even know where to begin. And this is something there's been similar moments in life, with drugs and going to, I was arrested and went to jail, and then I went to rehab, and it's just like, I didn't know the future, and I had to put faith in God that if I could just see one step, just give me one step, I'll take it. And that's when I've been just crushed to humility to where I can take that one step. And so in that case, I told you it was door number 1 and 2. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Door number 2. There's one step. And then I hired the wrong lawyers. And then I worked through that. My mindset, I moved to the East Coast to a tiny little town where there's more like bears and moose than there are people.
Yeah.
Just because I was kind of losing my mind, and I learned how to meditate. I learned, like seriously, I sat every morning praying and meditating for at least 30 to 60 minutes. I had to go through a process of forgiving. So it just didn't, because my insides were just like, whoa, how could this happen? So I learned to let go of that. And then it was just doing the work that was in front of me. And I spent 8 to 10 hours a day reading a stack of deposition papers, reading financials, reading like all these things I wasn't good at doing. Well, I spent 4.5 years doing them every day. And that was my life. A couple of times I'd fly back and forth to go to depositions in Utah, and different places. But that was the gist. So I went off the grid, off the radar, so I could just because he was really good at meddling and inflicting pain into family situations just to exploit.
That's crazy.
He kind of liked litigation. He once told me that litigation is a game of kings. Only rich, powerful people can afford to play it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like we've done our lawsuits and stuff, and that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
And well, one thing that you mentioned that I think sticks out and most entrepreneurs do well is, and what I think also holds back people from succeeding is just focusing on the next step. Like just do what's right in front of you. What is the highest and best use of my time in this moment? And what's the highest leverage thing I can do? And just go do that. And then go do more of it.
Yep.
Like if more people, I think, had that mindset, I think there would be more successful people personally. Like you get caught in the weeds, or you start thinking about like if you would have thought, man, I have this $5 million thing. And I'm sure you've thought that a lot, but like, if you just stay in that mindset versus like, hey, how can I make, to put it simply, the next dollar or the next thing, and like just slowly build and chip away. That's how you end up, more successful.
100%. And it works in those moments of like catastrophe, like I was in, like this crisis. And one thing turned into another, and then I got a good lawyer, and then we had settlement money coming from the accounting firm that their error and emissions insurance kicked in and paid a good chunk of money, almost $1 million, which helped me to get runway with more legal fees. It all went to the lawyer, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without it. And it's true, that next step. And now, even in productive states, that's part of how I coach entrepreneurs that feel stuck, like they don't know what to do. Like, block your first 2 hours of the day and just focus on the thing. The thing that you can do to make money. The thing that you can do to, what's the constraint right now? Focus your first block of time on that.
1,000%. Yep. So you go from that, and then what's the next business or what's the next thing that you start doing to, get yourself out of this hole?
Yeah, so it was by accident. Now that I've got attorneys, some even on staff, like on payroll, and hired a few accountants and bookkeepers to try to help navigate that process of peeling back all these layers of money. There was like 200 entities that we found in discovery. They hid a little bit of money here. That's just to $5,000, 17 grand, 23 grand, and all these random transactions taking place that were just small enough to be right below the radar. So anyway, in that process, I had a friend of mine call me, and she was starting up a new business and wanted to hire a couple of people. She's like, hey, don't you have guys now that can like do payroll and stuff? I'm yeah, I guess. So we helped her set up an LLC. Then we started doing her payroll, doing her books. She told 5 or 6 of her friends. And within a year, we had 50 clients.
Wow.
So in the middle of this lawsuit, we started a bookkeeping and kind of admin company. And that was good. It was a good distraction. It kept some of the staff. It offset some of their wages as they were working on, they could go to that stuff, and then they could work on legal lawsuit stuff with me for a while. And so that was a good thing. We started growing that and kind of focusing on that, but it wasn't really I really love talking to people about that because the head in the sand, as my story can attest, like it's not a good strategy. It's bad. So I like to talk about it, but I don't like to do it. I've learned a lot, but you just still don't
Yeah.
find me hanging out in spreadsheets for fun. You know what I mean?
I get it.
So, we've separated some of that now to where I focus more on the coaching end of it. And that was my role as we brought more and more business owners in kind of by accident. I would do kind of consulting and mindset and work with them on what is the next thing. How can you focus on the biggest constraint? And then we would take over like all the crap that isn't fun. Like you said, the entrepreneurs are not, they're visionary typically. They don't like that admin stuff. They don't like the spreadsheets and the numbers.
Yeah.
The Excel piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for people who are you're coaching and you're scaling up, like what are the main things that a lot of them struggle with?
It's usually just letting go of things. There's a pervasive mindset that I see, which is probably, it's going to take me longer to teach somebody else to do it than if I just do it myself.
Yeah.
Right. So that people see things through that lens, and it goes into all sorts of things, whether it's marketing, whether it's even sending the invoices, with even the non-visionary stuff. They just think it's going to take me longer to set that up. So they never really like relinquish that bottleneck or open up that bottleneck because they think it's going to be so prohibitive for them to try to bring somebody else in. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And it's all ego driven. And it's the same thing like people struggle with, like that we coach or that we help out with.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're just like and this is true. In the beginning, you have to be okay with them doing it at probably 80% capacity of what you could have done it at. But the trade-off is, what can you do with that freed up time? What can you go do on build on the other stuff? And then eventually you get better at it, or they get better at it than you were. Right. And but most people, they hit that 80% threshold and they're like, gosh, this person is just terrible. And they let them go and they never grow. Yeah. So yeah, you have to be willing to counter that pain. And that's also what we've noticed just in anytime we make a business pivot, not even just a hire, but like, for example, we were talking before, and I've mentioned on the podcast where we made some pivots, we made some changes, and those changes can be painful a lot of time for businesses, where it's like, hey, we're making a little bit less money right now, or the clients are slightly different, and you got to figure something out. And what a lot of people do is they encounter that pain and then they turn back to what they were doing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, you need to make those adjustments to grow. And for us, luckily, we're okay with the pain, and then we've been able to now see the fruit of it. But most people stop before that. So I think that's great.
I've heard a quote recently that the pain, when you feel that discomfort, a lot of people see that as a signal to turn back, and it's not. It's a signal that you're actually breaking out of a conditioned response, like what you're used to, your comfort zone. So when you feel that discomfort, it often requires, and the right thing to do is to lean in. And on the 80%, like, absolutely. That's what I try to beat into people's heads. Like, come on. If you don't spend any time, if you spend 3 hours a week or 3 hours a day in your calendar and email and basic administrative stuff, someone does it half as good as you, and you don't spend any time. Like, I was thinking about a recent example where I'm trying to do meal prep, and I'm wanting to get more healthy and cut body fat and different things. So I'm trying to do this meal prep, and after a few days, I'm just getting angry, man. I'm pissed because I'm standing at the counter for like 2 hours. My back hurts. I'm just thinking,
Grilling chicken.
Yeah, I hate this. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I pull out my phone. I set it on a tripod, and I put a smile on my face and just talk through the next 3 meals. I did it the next day. And I did it the next day. With ChatGPT, I turned that into a playbook. I put an ad out on Facebook, and I had somebody come over to my house for 3 hours a couple times a week and do meal prep.
Exactly.
Cost me very little. Now, they mess some of the macro counting. They don't add the right seasoning, but I don't do any of that. I got an ice chest in my car with all my food.
Yeah.
I know exactly how many calories I'm getting. It's all in MyFitnessPal. It's all set. I'm hitting my targets. Mine's been 0.
Exactly. Yeah. And the big thing, though, is having something that is higher leverage.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I understand people who are first starting out, whatever. My money's the issue. But once you have something that is so high leverage that's worth doing, like, how do you figure out how to do more of that? And that's also what we talk about when people are like, well, how do I make my first few hires? Or how do I know who to hire next? It's just like, well, what's the biggest lever that you can pull? So like, one thing that we try to teach everybody, and I mentioned it earlier, but it's just highest and best use. If you can just think highest and best use in everything that you do, right? Like, what's the one lever or the one thing I can do that's going to give me the best return? And just do more of that. Like, if I could boil business down, I think that's about it. Like, how can I do the thing that makes me the most money in the shortest amount of time? And then how can I do more of it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And if you build, a lot of people try to build from the roof down. And you don't build a house that way. You don't remodel a house that way. You never. You start from the bottom up, and the bottom is typically like administrative stuff, the basic back office things that weigh you down that most founders aren't good at anyway.
Yeah.
They may have their nuances of how they communicate an invoicing process to a client that maybe some new person might not have all, they might rub somebody the wrong way, but those are things that are easy to overcome. And when they're mired down and stuck in $10 tasks, there's zero time for $10,000 thinking, but if there's a little space and they can get that time back, they can usually engage in that process of finding the levers you're talking about and just cranking them that make it a no-brainer.
So with the clients that you have right now, who do you typically like help the most? Like who's like the main avatar, or is it a little bit of everything?
In terms of like what business?
Yeah, what type of business industries and stuff like that?
It's mostly service-based, but we have a lot. I've got HVAC company owners. I've got plumbing companies, electrical. So there's some trades out there, a lot of those lately. But we also have software development companies and a few marketing agencies. So it's more in that, it's all in the service space, actually. Every one of our clients are in service. And then more of the common denominator is revenue. It's usually around 300, 400, a million. We have a few clients that are around that 3 million level that they've been there for 10 years. You just can't figure out how to get past and break through that ceiling. So that's kind of the denominator, I'd say.
Got it. And why that revenue number?
It's where these kind of problems are common. They haven't, typically people on the higher end of that level, they will go try to find a unicorn. They'll try to find they'll try to find you. Yeah. They're going to find a COO. They bring them in, but their only other employees are just maybe some techs in the field. They have no experience with a high level guy that has, or gal that has experience with. So they bring somebody in, pay them $150,000 a year thinking, solve everything. Right? And that entrepreneur, I'm going to put lipstick all over this, make it look good.
Yeah.
They come in 6 months, like what they need help with is their email or their calendar. So after 6 months of paying $150,000 salary, they let them go and they think, see, I got to do it myself. And they're back. That's like they hit a ceiling and they go back and they hit the floor and they hit ceiling and they just kind of go back.
So for that person specifically, so I know you mentioned their calendar, their email, but like what would be their first few steps? So just for like that specific example, you got some techs in the field, you're building this thing, you're making money, but like you're doing everything. So what would be like the first month plan for somebody like that?
I would start by looking at where their time goes. So getting real serious about tracking and measuring where the time is actually spent, because it's never where they think it's spent. So if I can get somebody to have the discipline to actually log their time for a day or two, they start thinking like, what am I doing? Like they have this aha moment that starts to give credibility to the idea that you have to let go of this stuff. I'll see things like taking the garbages out in the office, doing this. I'm like, what? Like seriously, like unless you really love that task, what are you doing? With me, it was macros, like meal prep. It was pissing me off. So that's a trigger. If there's things that are pissing somebody off, start there because that's sucking the energy out of you, right? So time audits, things that are like sucking the time, the energy, because entrepreneurs do what they do because they're lit up. So that's what I would say is the first step for first month plan. And then from there, it's usually get an assistant or learn just how to start letting go. And it depends on the person, how entrenched they are. People that are a little newer in that process, let go a little faster. Some of the guys that have been 10 years at the same level, they have a real hard time letting go of email, Nah, no way. I can't give that to them, or something like that.
Got it. And so a quick pivot. So like, how do you balance, obviously you're a dad. And so how do you balance like the family aspect and then also trying to be an entrepreneur?
That's a challenge. Yeah. For sure. I've worked at home all those years dealing with the lawsuit. I worked at home. I had a home office and I had to teach my kids when they were young, when they were little, that when I go into that office, it's like I'm gone. And so when they were really little, I wouldn't let them see me go in there. So that was secret way. Yeah. So my wife and even she would sometimes come knock on the door and like you'd have to kind of work that out.
Yeah.
Having an office to go to is a little better. But balance is key. It's really hard to strike though.
Yeah. I think there's always one loser.
Yeah, for sure. And so I don't know if I've kind of gone back and forth. The main thing is freedom, like having the freedom to be able to choose and if you're spending your time on $10,000 tasks and you're growing something and building something and it's taking 80-90% of your time, then I think that's okay. When what's really sad is when you're building something and feel trapped and chained to it,
Mm-hmm.
and your family is paying the price. And then you go to work and you're just stuck doing admin tasks that are $10 an hour tasks that somebody else could do. So, how to do that. I really admire you guys. You have good philosophy and core values that really drive that. And that's a good boundary. It's a good balance to keep those boundaries. And I'll say, like, I know Ryan, for instance, he's like, I'm always going home at 5. I'm always having dinner. Like, I have not been that good.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's something that I didn't even know, like, I guess I didn't really know existed until I started working here. Right. Like, and luckily I got those things before I had a family. But yeah, 'cause before I was like, oh, grind, work hard, do your thing. And yeah, I think the culture kind of bleeds through to everybody because like he's headed home, I'm headed home.
Yeah.
And I think two things happen. One, when we're at work, it makes us a lot more efficient with the time that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you place constraints around your day, then shockingly, the things get done the way it's supposed to. And
forcing functions, right?
Yeah, yeah. And by default, those things happen where it's like, I'm not going to spend my time on a $10 an hour task if I don't have an hour to spend on this task, right?
Right.
So I think indirectly we ended up here as well. And kind of and to Ryan's story. So when Ryan, his first child, spent the first year of his life in the NICU.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, I got to build this business to like kind of support my wife, take care of it. And so I don't think he knew, like, he indirectly did it at that time. And now we can look back and be like, yeah, there's this whole philosophy around it, but it was just like, well, like I have a business and I'm, making 7 figures a year, but I got this thing with this family issue.
Yeah.
And it kind of just bled through and, it's worked out pretty well for us. And
that's interesting. That's very phenomenal to me because it's like, I kind of got there, not through the same path.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to help other people get there, but it's the indirect way that you just described is pretty cool. But it's very similar to this time audit and making people aware of where their time actually goes.
Yeah.
That's a forcing function too.
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at, I'm not going to take this 3 hours of admin time in a day and I'm going to delegate that to somebody else. Then the next question is, how big is the lever I can pull with that time?
Yep.
And then the follow-up is, and what time can I get home to have dinner with my family?
Mm-hmm.
So when you start looking at your calendar that way, that there's real estate there and there's only so much in that calendar, right? Then you have a better, the odds are improved, the balancing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because entrepreneurs are such good problem solvers, just by default, right? And then see, like, when you start a business, you're solving a problem.
Yeah.
But then we don't really look at like our actual business itself and how do we like put constraints around ourselves and then make it work within these things. So for example, it's like, all right, I know I have 8 hours a day. I have to get things done. I want to make X amount in revenue. I want to do this. And like, okay, how do I solve it?
Yeah.
Right. And for example, like one thing that we just worked on, where we're starting this golf channel, and we have certain constraints around the amount of camera crews that we can have at the golf course,
right?
The guests that we're gonna have, and not everyone's a good golfer, and yada yada yada. But we're like, all right, these are all the things that like are problems, and like now that we have the variables, let's go solve the problem.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I think that's a great way for entrepreneurs to look at, again, their day, or just anything. It's just like, how can I lay out all the variables in my business or in my challenge, and then now I can go.
Yeah. Some of those I love that so much. Like it's such a good way to, that's enlightening for me too. Cause I don't know that I've looked at it that way, that if you get some distance, right? I read this great book called Work the System, I think, by Sam Carpenter. And he talks about just taking a slightly elevated and distant view of your business, which is what you just described.
Yeah.
It's like, if you look at it like this and you get the whole picture and you realize that part needs to be improved. So let's pop it out. Let's work on it. And then we'll put it back in. So you're never just like you always can't see the forest,
but you can only do that, like just what you mentioned with time. Yeah. Right. So if you're stuck doing the $10 an hour tasks or the whatever tasks, or even if you're doing $10,000, $100,000 an hour tasks, you're still stuck in the business. And I think what benefits most entrepreneurs is taking some time to like really think about working like on the entire business as opposed to right? People say that a lot. So yeah, I guess for you, What's on the roadmap for the rest of the year? What are the targets for your specific business?
Yeah, just growing, turning more into, I'm working on building more of the group cohorts that we coach instead of one-on-ones that are a little more prohibitive for my calendar. I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking at my calendar saying I can't bring too many more of those one-on-ones in and fly out to somebody's office for a half day and do things like that. So that's a focus, getting better at doing content and attracting people, getting on different stages and sharing a message. My goal with all of it is to take this story that I've told you bits and pieces of here. And if there's anybody that is potentially going through any kind or variation of that, to just save them any of the blood, sweat, and tears that gone through, if possible. So that I kind of feel like is my calling. Like, I've paid the price. I've gone through the ringer on a lot of those things. And if I can help you see that a little differently and speed up the process or shortcut one of those bloodied knees or blackened eyes, then I hope I can reach you and share a message with you. So I'm doing more YouTube content and different things to try to lay out some of our frameworks and processes so that people can, coaching or not, they can try to do a kind of a do-it-yourself model, which is a little harder to get the mindset stuff to convey through that, but just share tools.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, here's the thing though. I mean, with tools and, it's all out there already, but people need the accountability. And that's where this coaching comes into play.
Yeah.
That's the main reason. Like, for example, if you're trying to get in shape, you can go to chat and go get a meal plan and go get a workout plan. But what's beneficial, and I think where you bring value to somebody or any coach brings value, is number one, just hearing it from somebody else to get your unique situation, and then the accountability piece.
For sure.
And that's why people, like, when people pay, they pay attention.
Yeah.
So, for sure. And they come in and they want to spend and then they're going to value what you say a little bit more, and you can give them like a good diagnosis. So, like, sure. Student wise, is there a goal, like size that you want to get to? Is there a goal, revenue target?
Yeah, there's some revenue targets and goals. Not necessarily student wise. I'm more just wanting to, like I said, I spent all those years, 10 years just off the radar, being absolutely doing a lot to not be discovered, like trying to be very below the radar. And so now breaking out of that has been really a challenge for me personally. And I let myself slide a lot, like physically. And so I've been working on myself and trying to be kind of an example of how to get out of that. So I really want to get good at content. I want to get good at sharing a message that people can, hopefully I can resonate with the right people that could benefit from the experiences that I've had. So I have some revenue goals, different things like that push me, but more it's, I want to get back to the entrepreneurial world. And I also want to get back to young men and women that feel like that are suffering with addiction or that have, I think those kids are sometimes some of the most gifted and talented. And that's what I learned about me in those days in rehab is I had great doctors that poured into me. And if without them, I'd be dead, man. I mean, I would not be here today at all. And when I learned how to deploy all the energy that I was using for these addictions, right, and pour it into something productive, it didn't take long. So if I can help somebody else realize there's all these other possibilities over here, let's just redirect your energy.
Yeah. And one thing that I've seen is like addicts and entrepreneurs have like the wires are kind of similar. like that there's addicts, entrepreneurs, salespeople, they're all kind of the same, right? Vein. It's just like you said, you just got to kind of get redirected. If you can, use your powers for good, evil. I'm totally with you on that. And I don't know what it is, or if it's just like that addictive personality or the dopamine hits of being an entrepreneur. And so, I get you.
So think of this. You mentioned dopamine, and I wanted to mention this earlier. When you have an entrepreneur that you're coaching, somebody they've built up for a few years, they're making some cash, right? But they are the bottleneck and everything's running through them. And it's just, everything's stuck. There's a big dopamine cycle that's taking place there. So you could get clear and think about what's the $10,000 lever I could pull. But sometimes we get scared of our potential, right? We get scared of who am I to be that big, that good, and that's kind of back there in the back of everybody's head to some extent, at least in the beginning.
For sure.
But on the other hand, if they've got 10 people that everything needs to go through them, like these fires erupt and they have to put it out, That's a huge cycle of dopamine. Like they hate it, but they kind of love it.
Yeah.
And that's that same addictive personality that you were just talking about. And that's where it's like, just redirect, learn how to redirect, redeploy, just build a different system, a standard operating procedure, knowing, I love what you said. Have you just know, put all these parameters out on the table, like a jigsaw puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, just looking at one piece and being so fixated with this one thing and griping or complaining about this one issue or how everybody has to come to me, but you look at all the pieces and say, okay, here's our constraints. Here's our forcing functions. Let's solve for them.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. And it's just kind of ended up happening this way. And then the other thing too, that we look at is when we're looking at like all these different pieces, like, and you've been in business, there's always a problem. Like there's always going to be like, there are probably like 800 different problems that are in our business that I could probably solve for. But I would rather solve for like the one or two big things that are going to, again, move the business forward.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, it's funny. We literally, there was a problem that I knew about for a while and our team knew about it too. Just on like one of our websites, very, very small little thing. And then like, it came up again today and we're like, all right, we're finally going to solve this problem. And like, because it's become enough of an issue where it's worth it for us to fix. Right. So, I think entrepreneurs also have to be okay with that. And most are, but like just understanding that just because there is a problem doesn't mean you have to solve it.
No, for sure.
Yeah. And, solve the things that, again, are going to impact your revenue, whether it be a customer service thing, a money thing, a lead thing, whatever it is.
Yep.
And I think you'll be a lot more sane if you just don't come in and try to put out every single fire that comes up.
So have you heard of this book called The Goal? It's
No.
one that all Amazon executives are required to read. And it talks about the theory of constraints, which is what you're describing there. So the theory of constraints says that, like, if you're a car manufacturer, and that's your business, as a metaphor, as an example, and you can produce 7 engines a day, 5 sets of wheels a day, 6 chassis a day, where is your constraint? You're rolling, like, you want to sell cars. That's the goal.
Yeah.
But if your constraint is you can only produce 4 or 5 sets of wheels and 7 or 8 engines and 7 or 8 chassis, don't work on the engine, work on the wheels. And that's what you're talking about. If you focus your energy on that constraint, then maybe you can expand that capacity to where now the wheels, you're producing 10 sets of wheels. Like, whoa, now the others become the constraint. We'll work on one of those.
100%. And this happens at every single level too, by the way. It's not just like for like our high level people. This happens when someone starts a business. They're like, well, I need an LLC. I need to make a website. I need to, I'm like, no, just talk to people and close deals.
Yeah.
Just sell as much as possible. And that's it.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, people just get caught in the minutia and it's so funny.
Yep.
And I understand you want to be prepared and you want to do it, but you can get the most prep by just selling and talking to people. So now that your kids are a little bit older, you said one's in
One just graduated college. Last few months ago.
and one's about to start.
I got a senior in high school, and I've got one in between there that is not in college right now, but he's turning 21 on Saturday.
So how do you think about, trying to transfer some of those entrepreneur genes, or like, how are you thinking about like, well, what are they going to do with their lives? Cause they're kind of at that point now. So
That's an excellent question. Like, maybe I should ask you. No. There's what I've been doing with my younger kids is really focusing more on goals and seeing what I've done with my older kids. Some of the things that I haven't done. We've had an incredible life. Back, we moved to Hawaii after the lawsuit, just on a whim, went there for 6 months and did nothing the same day after day. So that 6 month felt like 3 years. Like, it felt so long and just was fun. And then from there, we're like, well, what should we do now? And then we went to Europe for 6 months with no plans. We had an Airbnb for 2 nights. I thought that was going to give my kids this feeling of, this is the story I was telling myself, like, I'll show them that the world is an oyster. They can do whatever they want, just decide. It didn't really work that way because I wasn't proactive with them. But I've learned my lesson. And now I'm very proactive with my kids. One of them's outside right now. And I spent the day at the college with him with a baseball camp that he was at for the day.
cool.
And it's working. Like, I like to work with them on showing them what do they want down the road, and then and then work back into that first of all, but not have backup plans, not have, not that they want to play professional sports. Okay, go. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. don't measure your dreams against the odds. Measure it against what somebody else who's achieved your dreams have done. And then say, okay, here's the list of what they did. If you're willing to do that list, you could get the same result.
Yeah.
Just, are you willing and will you follow through? For sure, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I guess like, especially in entrepreneurshure, in entrepreneurship, I mean, you copy and pasting isn't the worst thing in the world. There's certain principles that work in every single industry. Obviously, if you're trying to be the next big tech company or the next big thing, yeah, you gotta be a little unique in what you do. But
yeah,
ultimately, to make great income, you can just copy and paste, and then add a little bit of your own spin on it. But the majority of people, like, again, we teach wholesaling, we teach real estate,
right?
Just copy and paste and do what they're already doing. Like, there's plenty of opportunities, plenty of stuff. Like, you don't have to be. I mean, if you want to be, that's amazing. Like, and solve the problem. But to live a great life, you really don't have to do anything that different.
Absolutely. Just follow but that's why you get coaching. Like, if somebody wants to be in real estate, why would they not come? You have the model, you have the blueprint to where they literally can copy and paste. It's, here's the leads, you make this many calls, you send this many emails, you make this many offers, you do this many things.
Yeah.
You are going to get the same results.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's skill involved, but like the skills gap gets closed the more that you do it. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's another piece too. So yeah, I think that's great. And for you, I mean, cause you talked about, being an addict and everything, like, when you think about your previous self, and then even the people who are struggling, who may be struggling with addiction, what advice or kind of what do you wish you could have told yourself at that time?
That's a question that I don't know how to answer yet, but I know what I want to say.
Yeah.
And it's that if there's a way that I could get through to those people that are not thinking clearly because of their addiction and the issue, and to tell them that rehab is so not as scary as you think it is right now. Like, there's help on the other side of that. There's help inside of it. Like, do it. Years, you will stretch these years on and on and on and feel the suffering and the pain of what you're going through. And to trade that for 6-8 weeks in rehab somewhere where you focus on yourself the entire time.
Yeah.
It's just not as bad. I remember being mortified by the idea. I just thought, my whole world will fall apart. I had 2 kids, I had a wife. I was in a mortgage that I could not afford. I was trying to string together payments and rob from Peter to pay Paul. And I just thought, I tried to quit on my own. Every time my wife would leave town, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. It was pain pills. The withdrawals from that are terrible.
Yeah.
So when she would be gone for a few days, I'm like, okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to white knuckle through it. And I would go through all the physical symptoms. I'd get right to the end, and then she'd be coming back. The next day, I'm like, I can't look like this to her. Oh, exactly. Yeah. My whole house of cards will come tumbling down. And I just thought that it was impossible. Going to rehab is just not in the cards. And then when I was forced, that forcing function again with jail in my future, if not, I had to. And when I did, it was still terrifying. I remember being in the car with my wife, and she had the courage to say, get out of the car. You got to go. You're like, it was a mess, man.
Yeah.
But I did. And then within a week or two, you start feeling better. I remember feeling better every single day. It lasted for over 9 months. I would literally wake up in the morning, Javi, and be like, no, I'm serious. It was like that.
Yeah.
I would just get up. I'd be like, this is like, I was so jacked every day because it just was measurable over the day before waking up. Because as an addict and taking all those substances, your body and your chemistry and your brain, everything's just whacked, And that just started to improve. For 9 months, it improved every day. And I was like, wow, this is just great. It's almost like getting high every day, Like it lasts. So, it was really cool. So that's what I would try to say to people. Like, there is another version of you out there somewhere, and all these things that are being covered up through that addiction, you can deploy them in a different direction. And whether it's money, whether it's purpose, whether it's contribution to somebody else, there's another way out there that could really just be fun.
Yeah. And I think all those 3 things that you mentioned can all be one as well, right?
Sure.
Like, you can, like, as you provide more value, as you contribute to society and help the past version of yourself, typically finances kind of
fall in place,
fall after that too, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not saying you're gonna be crazy rich, but like, you'll figure out ways to to sustain yourself
Absolutely.
throughout that too.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so I always ask this question, and it's going to be another deep one. But if you had to leave the earth tomorrow,
Okay.
what's one thing you want people to know? You can take a minute.
I think it's really the same thing. Like I really want to help people to understand. I have a lot of friends that are in the same boat that are still friends from my childhood that went down that path and they never got off.
Yeah, they're still kind of white knuckling. Yeah.
And they're all messed up. And just to say it's not that bad. All these things that you're thinking aren't real. They're false. And if you will just give it a try and just be curious, like that's what I want to leave behind. That's what I want to try. I want people to know that they're capable, like they have God inside of them. They're entitled to that spirit, to that inspiration. You can't hear it when you're all messed up. You can't hear it when you're layering all these excuses and lies and you're not being a good human. It's harder and harder to hear God's voice and hear that whispering. And I think we all have something. We're all here for a reason, for a purpose. And I couldn't figure mine out until I got that stuff wrong in my past.
For sure. Yeah, that, and I think just there's a way that you see yourself, and then there's the way that God sees you, and God sees you perfect, right? And then like as you start starting to listen and to that voice, I think there's an identity shift that happens.
Yeah.
And then I think people who, and again, I haven't struggled, but I have family members who struggle and are still kind of in that in that cycle. And I think it does come down to an identity thing too, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic. And then, but like, if you just kind of shift that, it's like, no, like I'm loved by God. I'm loved. And like, God wants to see me thrive. And if you can start making that mindset shift, I think it makes the path a little bit easier. Yeah.
I've never been a fan of the, I'm an addict. And I know that some people derive a lot of strength by going to the meetings where they say that and they keep track of the number of days. It never did anything to me.
So this is actually something that I actually just heard today, and it was talking about kind of like on the spirituality piece, and they were saying, like a lot of people say like starve yourself or like deplete yourself from the sin or from whatever you're doing, right? Like if you want to starve yourself, but what happens when you starve? You're hungry and you don't want to eat more. And in reality, it's like you have to fill yourself up with something else. And again, so for you, it was, entrepreneurship and building this thing. For others, fill yourself up with God, with the word, with prayer, and which you also talked about too. But there has to be something that replaces it.
Yeah. Or a vacuum.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's the other piece too, that I think people miss out on. I'm not even sure if they miss out on it or they don't think about it, where it's like, there is something, every time that God removes something from your life, there's usually something better that's about to get filled in there. As long as you let it happen and you're open. Right. So I think that's a huge piece. So I like that too.
Yeah. You ever heard of Wayne Dyer?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. He was an author. He's passed away. He was actually our neighbor in Hawaii, and I was a fan of some of his books and writing, but he says that a similar concept to that, which is like, if you are on drugs and you want to stop, just keep thinking, like, don't make it so hard. Just keep thinking thoughts of, I want to be off this. I just keep thinking thoughts of God. Just keep thinking thoughts, because as you make more space and bring more of that in, that's kind of another forcing function where the other stuff just becomes a little less, and it may take years, it may take weeks, months, who knows?
Yeah.
But it's better than just giving up and not saying anything.
And I think the other part of it too is, and again, I don't know, I can't speak for you or speak for anybody, but I think for most people, alcoholics who have recovered or whatever, there's always going to be small temptation, but the temptation gets smaller and smaller. Yeah. The smaller, the less that you feed that thing, or the less that you like, the further away and further removed you are. And I think that's with all sin and temptation and but everything in life. Like there's always going to be like that quick little impulse or thought, but it's like, the pull is weaker.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like that story about which wolf do you feed?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If you're feeding it, it's going to keep wanting more and more and more. It's going to get stronger and stronger because you're giving it more food. If you're sure of it, by feeding something else, you're going to get more. That's going to become stronger. And more predominant in your life.
And so just for young men in general, right? Because you mentioned that that's something else you have a heart for and thoughts for. So what advice or kind of what thoughts would you give your younger self or other young men who may be listening?
Well, first of all, if you're struggling with anything like that, it would be that it isn't as bad as you think.
Absolutely.
Just be open to it.
Mhm.
Even if it's go read a book, go say a prayer, go, pray every day. Find something that you can do daily.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm telling my son right now, he wants to gain weight. He wants to put on weight and get mass. I'm like, what's one thing you could do? He's like, well, I can track my calories and do this. I'm like, you're not gonna do all that. I know you. Like you're not, and you're gonna say that.
Yep.
What's one thing you could do that's really easy that you won't have an excuse for in the next 3 days when you get busy?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's making a shake, protein shake, scooping it out, adding creatine the night before. So that way it's just turn on the water and he's good to go.
Yeah.
So that's simple and small. And that's what I would say. What's one thing that you could do that you can do every day? Can you commit to saying a prayer?
Mm-hmm.
Go buy a book and actually read it, or listen to a podcast or a tape, some kind of a program that feeds your mind. Just do something.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just think like, oh, I wish I could change, and then sweep it under the rug and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing, I think.
I love that. Yeah. And I would agree. I think just carving out time to like be a net positive for the day versus a net negative.
Yeah.
So I think there's that. And then, I'd also say just like figure out, you don't need to know your purpose. I think that's kind of like, especially for young men, I think it's a little overrated. I think, finding out what you're kind of good at and then just doing work. Right.
Yeah.
And again, we talked a little bit about faith, but the first thing that God gave man, Adam, was a job. He said, take care of the garden, tend to the garden, take care of the animals, take care of of everything. And another thing that I literally just heard and I love was men are a lot like a flatbed truck. They drive straighter with a load on it. And I was like, that's great. Like no, I mean, it's a lot harder to get into trouble when you have work and a purpose and something that you're working for. So again, I'm not saying you need to find your passion. That's different. But you need to have, like, I think if you find your identity, 1 in Christ and 2 in work, I think it is a lot. And again, trust me, like I did a lot of crazy stuff in my 20s and I'm not very proud of. But if you can find your identity in work, it'll always keep you a little bit more straight and narrow than you would be otherwise. I think a lot of people get in trouble because you got help.
Totally agree. And I like the idea of, if you don't know what your purpose is, like there's an exercise that I do with my clients to get them unstuck. I've done the same thing with my kids too. And it's think about yourself 20, 25 years down the road, depending on your age, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You look at this like 25 years from now, just give yourself permission to go nuts for a minute. Like if you had a magic wand, what would life look like? And just get that vision, that picture in mind, and maybe write a little paragraph about what that is, nothing crazy, and then start working backwards from that. And you can always change your mind. So if you're like, oh, no, that's too big. That's
yeah.
And you can change your mind later, but if you start there, it's an easy way to kind of bypass a lot of the negative self-talk in your mind by saying like, this is just a silly exercise. I'm going to look at it and just kind of go nuts for a minute. Put that 20, 25-year vision out there and you start to get an idea of what those pictures are. You can get some alignment in your decisions, from day to day, which lands you right back to what you were saying.
Yep. 100%. And kind of what we started this conversation with is just like when you have this big vision. And then most people get bogged down by the big vision. They're like, oh, geez, like, how am I going to solve all these things? But it's just like, next step.
Yeah.
Next thing in front of you, the next thing in front of you, and all that good stuff.
And with the 25-year, you go back to 10 and then 5 and then 3. And ChatGPT will do this all for you. Once you get to 25, say, what do I need to do now in 10 years to make sure the 25-year vision is true? And it's like, there's a list.
Yeah. I mean, I say this as nicely as possible. There is no excuse in 2025 with AI. There will be $1 billion business that's started with just one person in AI very soon.
Yep.
So there's no excuse. So Justin, where can people find more about you?
You can check us out online. I'm on Instagram and YouTube at It's Justin Lund. And also our website is propelyour.com.
Love it. And closing thoughts, anything else that you want people to know?
No, if you feel like you're stuck anywhere, I guess, if I have a playbook or a SOP or anything, and I have probably hundreds of them, just come and follow me. You don't need to submit your email address or anything. I'm happy to give you anything. If you're struggling hiring, or if you need an attorney, and what I said about hiring the wrong ones, like I have a playbook on how to hire attorneys, like all this stuff, I just reduced to writing, because if I'm going to do it again and again, I want to have a repeatable, reliable outcome, not one that's
yep.
hopefully snake eyes, no, that's not for me. I don't like to gamble that way. So anything I can do to help, just come hit me up on Instagram.
Awesome. This was great. Thanks, guys. See you.
Thank you.